I just read the 19-page probable cause arrest affidavit for BRYAN KOHBERGER, so if you keep listening, you'll hear me read the whole thing. We really learned some things, some surprising things. First of all, BRYAN wasn't as smart as he thought he was if he was indeed that male who entered the 1122 King Road house on November 13th, the early morning hours. He left behind a sheath, the cover for a K-bar knife that had the United States Marine Corps, Eagle, Globe, and Anchor insignia stamped on it, so that was apparently left behind. It had a single source of male DNA, which was traced back to BRYAN's dad, and that's how they nabbed him. But most of us were super surprised by the statements of the surviving roommates, at least one of those roommates, Dylan, and the fact that she actually saw the guy who was in the home walk past her, and she was just stunned, and she was in the second floor bedroom. Just like Truth and Transparency had predicted, Dylan wasn't on the first floor with Bethany. This whole time we assumed, and I believe we were led to believe that both surviving roommates were on the first floor. That's one of the reasons people assumed that Dylan and Bethany heard nothing and saw nothing. They believe the whole crime took place on the second and third floor. Oh my goodness. This affidavit is pretty sad. We will also learn that Zaina received a DoorDash order at 4 a.m. And at that time, it appears the suspect's vehicle, BRYAN's vehicle, had been, darting around the area. Just imagine that DoorDash driver just walking away with his or her life, because BRYAN apparently seemed to wait perhaps until 4 a.m. or later to commit these crimes. They weren't likely committed between 3 and 4 a.m. like we thought. There's so many things. The fact that Dylan was on the second floor. You'll see, according to the affidavit, that Dylan said she went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Dylan woke up at about 4 a.m. She thought she heard Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, so she's on 2. She could hear something going on above her head. Maybe that was the perpetrator taking Murphy the dog away, or maybe Murphy was there trying to save, Kaylee. A short time later, Dylan thought she heard someone that was Kaylee say something like, "There's someone here." It's so chilling. Cops think, okay, maybe that might have been Zaina on her TikTok app at about 4:12 a.m. because they saw activity on there. We don't know if it was the perpetrator messing with their phones. Who knows? Dylan looked out of her bedroom several times, but she didn't see anything when she heard that comment about someone being in the house. She opened her bedroom door a second time when she thought she heard crying coming out of Xana's room. Dylan said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." So I'm wondering if that was BRYAN? Was that Ethan? Stuff going on in the house was so loud that even the next door house, we've seen photos of that one house in the press, picked up a distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper followed by a loud thud, and a dog can be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m. And that camera is less than 50 feet away from the west wall of Xana's bedroom. So even though we've heard these rumblings, we see what has come to fruition, what is true. We heard the rumors about Dylan possibly being awake. We heard the rumors about Dylan possibly have seen this masked man who just walked right past her towards the sliding glass door, which is probably how he exited, and locking herself in her room and just being in shock. And that appears to have been true. But all the other things we may have assumed, like the roommates who survived only being on the first floor, people kept saying, "Oh, how did they not hear anything?"
Folks interview. Hi. So there were other roommates who lived at that residence. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was other people home at that time, but we are not just focusing just on them. We're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
So since they were home, was it a hostage situation?
No, it was not.
And then they didn't call it into police, so were they injured?
They were not injured, but like I said, we're still following up with everybody that could have been in that area.
Just to follow up on what she asked, so the other 2 roommates were there at the time of the attack?
All the information that we have from our investigation is that yes, they were.
Okay, but they were unhurt.
That is correct.
So is there any explanation as to why it took so long then for someone to call 911? You have surviving witnesses to an incident at 3 or 4 in the morning, and the 911 call didn't come until noon?
I don't think I ever said that they were witnesses. I said they were there. So, we don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night.
I don't ever know why people assumed they never heard anything, because Ethan's mom from the beginning said the surviving roommates heard something and she wouldn't give details. So Dylan said she opened her bedroom door for the 3rd time after she heard the crying, and she saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. So she knew he was a male, 5 feet 10 inches or taller, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. This man walked past Dylan as she stood in a frozen shock phase, and he walked towards the back sliding glass door. So Dylan locked herself in her room after seeing that man. She didn't state that she recognized him. That leads investigators to believe that's how he left the scene. Investigators think these crimes happened between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. And what's even more trippy is, according to Bryan's location records based on his cell phone and the movements of his Elantra, and how Bryan was captured on various surveillance video cameras in his movements that morning and prior to that morning, but he returned to the scene of the crime, likely not on Monday, November 14th, like I was wondering in my previous video, unless he somehow didn't have his phone on or wasn't captured on camera. But police said he came back to the area. According to his cell phone data, he arrived near the King Road residence between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. that Sunday. Now, this is before any cops would have been called or anyone showed up. Everyone is asking, of course, they shouldn't come down on Dylan. Not everyone is coming down on her, but some people, of course, are saying, oh my goodness, Dylan saw him. Why didn't she call the cops? We just don't have those details. It's not her fault that some crazy man came into the home and slayed 4 people there. People are saying Bryan might like the number 4. We know the number 4. In certain Asian cultures, they liken that to sounding like death. Maybe that's why he liked the number 4, if that's even true. I think that's just a rumor too, but maybe that's why he walked right past Dylan and spared her life, and it's not her fault that she froze in fear. None of us can predict how we would react. And we don't know if her phone was right there with her, charged up in her room. We don't know who ultimately called 911 at nearly noon the next day. We'll have to learn more. And another thing the probable cause affidavit doesn't tell us is how Bryan learned of these victims in the first place. We know he's been stalking them like a dozen times prior to the day. He was tracking them, stalking them. He had been in the area about 12 times, usually late at night into the early morning hours. They talk about different places, a coffee shop, a grocery store, Albertsons, all this stuff where they were tracking Bryan. Investigators knew about him about 2 weeks, I guess, or so after the crimes. There's so much we still need to see. We need to see the body cam footage from when Bryan was stopped in Latah County in August, but we don't know how he first learned of these victims. If he just ran into any of them in any establishment, did he find them on social media? Did he befriend any of them? Or did he just completely stalk them and decide to do what he did? I don't know. There's so much you can learn in this arrest affidavit, so that's why I just listen to, if you want to hear all 19 pages read aloud, it is pretty terrifying and shocking, and thank God my voice held out. Let's read Matthew 11:28 through 30 before we read this horrible affidavit. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And that's the prayer I pray for everyone involved here, especially Dylan. So many, of course, of the victims and their families, and even Bryan's family, all the people who didn't expect to be in this position. But Dylan, a special prayer for her too, because so many people are just saying, oh my goodness, why didn't she call 911? Why didn't she get help immediately? Why didn't she do this? Why didn't she do that? Once again, we still don't have all the facts. We don't know the situation, and we never know how we would react. So she should not be blamed. She should not be stalked. I hope she is somewhere protected, and just knowing it's not your fault when some perpetrator who is bent on destruction, intent to harm, intent to do away with people, coming in that house, slaying all 4 of those victims, you can't place that blame on a young girl like Dylan. So let's watch, listen. I put it on the screen, the whole affidavit. You can listen along with me and forgive my voice. I was trying the best I could. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned as we find out more. Bryan has an upcoming hearing in about a week. We'll learn if he pleads guilty or not, and we will keep learning more about this case as it moves through the justice system. Thank you. Let's read the 19-page arrest affidavit for Bryan Kohlberger. Exhibit A, statement of Brett Payne, so we know that officer from previous body cam footage. The below information is provided by Brett Payne, who is a duly appointed, qualified, and acting peace officer within the county of Latah, state of Idaho. Brett Payne is employed by Moscow Police Department in the official capacity or position of corporal, and has been a trained and qualified peace officer for approximately 4 years. I thought it was 2 years. Corporal Payne is being assisted by members of the Idaho State Police and agents of the FBI. On November 13th, 2022, at approximately 4 p.m., Moscow Police Department Sergeant Blaker and I responded to 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, hereafter the King Road residence. So he didn't show up till 4 p.m. to assist with scene security and processing of a crime scene associated with 4 homicides. Upon our arrival, Idaho State Police ISP forensic team was on scene and was preparing to begin processing the scene. MPD Officer Smith, one of the initial responding officers to the incident, advised he would walk me through the scene. Officer Smith and I entered the King Road residence through the bottom floor door on the north side of the building. Officer Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. Officer Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Xana Kernodle's, hereafter Kernodle room. Just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin, hereafter Chapin. Chapin was also deceased with wounds later determined, autopsy report provided by Spokane, and that's redacted, Spokane County Medical Examiner, dated December 15th, 2022, to be caused by sharp force injuries. I then followed Officer Smith upstairs to the third floor of the residence. The third floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee Gonzalez, hereafter Gonzalez's room. I later learned from review of Officer Nunes' body cam, there was a dog in the room when Moscow police officers initially responded. The dog belonged to Gonzalez and her ex-boyfriend Jack DeCour. I found out from my interview with Jack DeCour on November 13th, 2022, that he and Gonzalez shared the dog. Officer Smith then pointed out a small bathroom on the east side of the third floor. This bathroom shared a wall with Madison Mogan's, hereafter Mogan bedroom, which was situated on the southeast corner of the third floor. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in the single bed in the room. Both Maddie and Kaylee were deceased with visible stab wounds. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Mogan's right side when viewed from the door. The sheath was later processed and had K-Bar, USMC, and the United States Marine Corps Eagle Globe and Anchor insignia stamped on the outside of it. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA, suspect profile, left on the button snap of the knife sheath. As part of the investigation, numerous interviews were conducted by Moscow Police Department officers, Idaho State Police detectives, and FBI agents. Two of the interviews included BF, so we know that's Bethany, DM, we know that's Dylan. Both Bethany and Dylan were inside the King Road residence at the time of the homicides and were roommates to the victims. Bethany's bedroom was located on the east side of the first floor of the King Road residence. Based on numerous interviews conducted by MPD officers, ISP detectives, and FBI agents, as well as my review of evidence, I have learned the following. On the evening of November 12th, 2022, Ethan and Xana are seen by Bethany at the Sigma Chi house on the University of Idaho campus at 735 Nez Perce Drive from approximately 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. Bethany also estimated that at approximately 1:45 a.m., Ethan and Xana returned to the King Road residence. Bethany also stated that Ethan did not live at the King Road residence but was a guest of Xana. Kaylee and Maddie were at a local bar, the Corner Club, at 202 North Main Street in Moscow. Kaylee and Maddie can be seen on video footage provided by the Corner Club between 10 p.m. on November 12th and 1:30 a.m. on November 13th. At approximately 1:30 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie can be seen on video at a local food vendor called The Grub Truck at 318 South Main Street in downtown Moscow. The Grub Truck live streams video from their food truck on the streaming platform Twitch, which is available for public viewing on their website. This video was captured by law enforcement. A private party reported that he provided a ride to Kaylee and Maddie at approximately 1:56 a.m. from downtown Moscow in front of the Grub Truck to the King Road residence. Dylan and Bethany both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. This is with the exception of Xana, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Law enforcement identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this info. Dylan stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Dylan stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the third floor. A short time later, Dylan said she heard who she thought was Kaylee say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could also have been Xana, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. Dylan stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. Dylan stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Xana's room. Dylan then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." So we wonder what male voice that was. Was that Bryan, or could that have been Ethan talking to Xana? At approximately 4:12 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. A dog can be heard barking numerous times, starting at 4:17 a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. Dylan stated she opened her door for a third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. Dylan described the figure as 5 feet 10 inches or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. Dylan locked herself in her room after seeing the male. Dylan did not state that she recognized as the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. So this part is what everyone's reacting to. They don't, I guess, understand Dylan's shock. And this confirms the rumors that Dylan did see a man in a mask. Apparently, I guess, went back in her room and locked herself in. So those rumors are true. The combination of Dylan's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic downloads of records from Bethany and Dylan's phone, and video of a suspect video, as described below, leads investigators to believe the homicides occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. So we've got a little bit later of a date there. The video of a suspect video, I'm not sure if they're talking about video that Bryan took himself. During the processing of the crime scene, investigators found a latent shoe print. This was located during the second processing of the crime scene by the ISP forensic team by first using a presumptive blood test and then aminoblack, a protein stain that detects the presence of cellular material. The detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to the pattern of a Vans-type shoe sole just outside the door of Dylan's bedroom, located on the second floor. This is consistent with Dylan's statement regarding the suspect's path of travel. That's amazing. So he just walked right past her and spared her life. Thank God he spared her life and Bethany's life. As part of the investigation, an extensive search, commonly referred to in law enforcement as a video canvas, was conducted in the area of the King Road residence. This video canvas was to obtain any footage from the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022 in the area of the King Road residence and surrounding neighborhoods in an effort to locate the suspect or suspects or suspect vehicles traveling to or leaving from the King Road residence. This video canvas resulted in the collection of numerous surveillance videos in the area from both residential and business addresses. I have reviewed numerous videos that were collected and have had conversations with other MPD officers, ISP detectives, and FBI agents that are similarly reviewing footage that was obtained. A review of the camera footage indicated that a white sedan, hereafter suspect vehicle 1, was observed traveling westbound in the 700 block of Indian Hills Drive in Moscow at approximately 3:26 a.m. and westbound on Steiner Avenue at Idaho State Highway 95 in Moscow at approximately 3:28 a.m. On this video, it appears suspect vehicle 1 was not displaying a front license plate. A review of footage from multiple videos obtained from the King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of suspect vehicle 1, starting at 3:29 a.m. and ending at 4:20 a.m. These sightings show suspect vehicle 1 makes an initial 3 passes by the 1122 King Road residence and then leave via Walenta Drive. Based off of my experience as a patrol officer, this is a residential neighborhood with a very limited number of vehicles that travel in the area during the early morning hours. Upon review of the video, there are only a few cars that enter and exit this area during this time frame. Suspect vehicle 1 can be seen entering the area a 4th time at approximately 4:04 a.m., so he must have waited until after Xana's DoorDash left. It can be seen driving eastbound on King Road, stopping and turning around in front of 500 Queen Road number 52, and then driving back westbound on King Road. When suspect vehicle 1 is in front of the King Road residence, it appeared to unsuccessfully attempt to park or turn around in the road. The vehicle then continued to the intersection of Queen Road and King Road, where it can be seen completing a 3-point turn and then driving eastbound again down Queen Road. Suspect vehicle 1 is next seen departing the area of the King Road residence at approximately 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed. Suspect vehicle 1 is next observed traveling southbound on Walenta Drive. Based on my knowledge of the area and review of the camera footage in the neighborhood that does not show suspect vehicle 1 during that time frame, I believe suspect vehicle 1 likely exited the neighborhood at Palouse River Drive and Conestoga Drive. Palouse River Drive is at the southern edge of Moscow and proceeds into Whitman County, Washington. Eventually, the road leads to Pullman, Washington. Pullman, Washington is approximately 10 miles from Moscow, Idaho. Both Pullman and Moscow are small college towns, and people commonly travel back and forth between them. Law enforcement officers provided video footage of suspect Vehicle 1 to forensic examiners with the FBI that regularly utilize surveillance footage to identify the year, make, and model of an unknown vehicle that is observed by one or more cameras during the commission of a criminal offense. The forensic examiner has approximately 35 years law enforcement experience with 12 years at the FBI. His specific training includes identifying unique characteristics of vehicles, and he uses a database that gives visual clues of vehicles across states to identify differences between vehicles. After reviewing the numerous observations of suspect Vehicle 1, the forensic examiner initially believed that suspect Vehicle 1 was a 2011 through 2013 Hyundai Elantra. He was pretty spot on here. Upon further review, he indicated it could also be a 2011 through 2016 Hyundai Elantra. As a result, investigators have been reviewing information on persons in possession of a vehicle that is a 2011 through 2016 white Hyundai Elantra. Investigators were given access to video footage on the Washington State University WSU campus located in Pullman, Washington. A review of that video indicated that at approximately 2:44 a.m. on November 13th, 2022, a white sedan, which was consistent with the description of the white Elantra, known as suspect Vehicle 1, was observed on WSU surveillance cameras traveling north on Southeast Nevada Street at Northeast Stadium Way. At approximately 2:53 a.m., a white sedan, which is consistent with the description of the white Elantra known as suspect Vehicle 1, was observed traveling southeast on Nevada Street in Pullman, Washington, towards State Route 270. State Route 270 connects Pullman, Washington to Moscow, Idaho. This camera footage from Pullman, Washington was provided to the same FBI forensic examiner. The forensic examiner identified the vehicle observed in Pullman, Washington as being a 2014 through 2016 Hyundai Elantra. At approximately 5:25 a.m., a white sedan, which was consistent with the description of suspect Vehicle 1, was observed on 5 cameras in Pullman, Washington, and on WSU campus cameras. The first camera that recorded the white sedan was located at 1300 Johnson Road in Pullman. The white sedan was observed traveling northbound on Johnson Road. Johnson Road leads directly back to West Palouse River Drive in Moscow, which intersects with Conestoga Drive. The white sedan was then observed turning north on Bishop Boulevard and northwest on State Route 270. At approximately 5:27 a.m., the white Elantra was observed on cameras traveling northbound on Stadium Way at Nevada Street, Stadium Way at Grimes Way, Stadium Drive at Wilson Road, and Stadium Way at Cougar Way. Depiction shows Moscow and Pullman. Always kind of hard to read these or see these depictions in these PDFs. Depictions showing white Elantra's path of travel, not to scale. So somewhere in here, and we'll get better renditions of this, we see 1630 Northeast Valley Road, so I believe that's Brian's apartment. And we see somewhere indicating the white Elantra seen leaving the WSU campus, and the red on the legend should indicate the white Elantra seen returning to WSU's campus. The arrows are camera locations and indicate vehicle direction of travel. So that's good. Thank God there's so many cameras. On November 25th, 2022, MPD asked area law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for white Hyundai Elantras in the area, so they knew as early as November 25th. On November 29th, 2022, at approximately 12:28 a.m., Washington State University, WSU, police officer Daniel Tiengo queried white Elantras registered at WSU. As a result of that query, he located a 2015 white Elantra with a Pennsylvania license license plate LFZ 8649. The vehicle was registered to BRYAN KOHBERGER, hereafter Kohberger, residing at 1630 Northeast Valley Road, apartment 201, Pullman, Washington. 1630 Northeast Valley Road is approximately 3/4 of a mile from the intersection of Stadium Way and Cougar Way. The last camera location that picked up the white Elantra, so they kind of had their eyes on him pretty early on. This was a little more than 2 weeks after the crime. That same day, at approximately 12:58 a.m., WSU Officer Curtis Whitman was looking for white Hyundai Elantras and located a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra at 1630 Northeast Valley Road in Pullman in the parking lot. 1630 Northeast Valley Road is an apartment complex that houses WSU students. Officer Whitman also ran the car and it returned to Kohberger with a Washington tag. I reviewed Kohberger's Washington State driver's license information and photograph. This license indicates that Kohberger is a white male with a height of 6 feet and weighs 185 pounds. Additionally, the photograph of Kohberger shows that he has bushy eyebrows. Kohberger's physical description is consistent with the description of the male Dillon saw inside the King Road residence on November 13th. Further investigation, including a review of Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Duke's body cam and reports, showed that on August 21st, 2022, BRYAN KOHBERGER was detained as part of a traffic stop that occurred in Moscow, Idaho by Corporal Duke. We need to see those body cams. At the time, Kohberger, who was the sole occupant, was driving a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plate LFZ 8649, which was set to expire on November 30th, 2022. During the stop, which was recorded via a law enforcement body camera, Kohberger provided his phone number, and they've redacted it, hereafter the 8458 phone, as his cellular telephone number. Investigators conducted electronic database queries and learned that the 8458 phone is a number issued by AT&T. So he was stopped again here. On October 14th, 2022, BRYAN KOHBERGER was detained as part of a traffic stop by a WSU police officer. There's more footage here. Upon review of that body cam and report of the stop, Kohberger was the sole occupant and was driving a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plate LFZ 8649. I wonder why he was stopped so much. On November 18th, according to Washington State licensing, Kohberger registered the 2015 white Elantra with Washington and later received Washington plate CFB 8708. Prior to this time, the 2015 white Elantra was registered in Pennsylvania, which does not require a front license plate to be displayed. This was learned through communications with a Pennsylvania officer who is currently certified in the state of Pennsylvania. Based on my own experience and communication with Washington law enforcement, I know that Idaho and Washington require front and back license plates to be displayed. Investigators believe that Kohberger is still driving the 2015 white Elantra because his vehicle was captured on December 13th, 2022 by a license plate reader in Loma, Colorado. Information provided by a query to a database. Kohberger's Elantra was then queried on December 15th, 2022 by law enforcement in Hancock County, Indiana. On December 16th, 2022 at approximately 2:26 p.m., surveillance video showed Kohberger's Elantra in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. The sole occupant of the vehicle was a white male whose description was consistent with Kohberger. Kohberger has family in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, learned through a TLO search and locate tool database query. Based on the information provided on the WSU website, Kohberger is currently a PhD student in criminology at Washington State University. Pursuant to records provided by a member of the interview panel for Pullman Police Department, we learned that Kohberger's past education included undergraduate degrees in psychology and cloud-based forensics. These records also showed Kohberger wrote an essay when he applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department in the fall of 2022. Oh my goodness, he applied to intern with the Pullman Police? Kohberger wrote in his essay he had interest in assisting rural law enforcement agencies with how to better collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. Wow. Kohberger also posted a Reddit survey which can be found by an open source internet search. The survey asked for participants to provide information to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision making when committing a crime. As part of this investigation, law enforcement obtained search warrants to determine cellular devices that utilized cellular towers in close proximity to the King Road residence on November 13th, 2022, between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. After determining that Kohberger was associated to both the 2015 white Elantra and the 8458 phone, investigators reviewed these search warrant returns. A query of the 8458 phone in these returns did not show the 8458 phone utilizing cellular tower resources in close proximity to the King Road residence between 3 and 5 a.m. Maybe he left his phone at home. Based on my training, experience, and conversations with law enforcement officers that specialize in the utilization of cellular telephone records as part of investigations, individuals can either leave their cellular telephone at a different location before committing a crime, or turn their cellular phone off prior to going to a location to commit a crime. This is done by subjects in an effort to avoid alerting law enforcement that a cellular device associated with them was in a particular area where a crime is committed. I also know that on numerous occasions, subjects will surveil an area where they intend to commit a crime prior to the date of the crime. Depending on the circumstances, this could be done a few days before or for several months prior to the commission of a crime. During these types of surveillance, it is possible that an individual would not leave their cellular telephone at a separate location or turn it off since they do not plan to commit the offense on that particular day. On December 23, 2022, I applied for and was granted a search warrant for historical phone records between November 12, 2022 at 12 a.m. and November 14th at 12 a.m. for the 8458 phone held by the phone provider AT&T, approximately 24 hours preceding and following the times of the homicides. On December 23rd, pursuant to that search warrant, I received records for the 8458 phone from AT&T. These records indicated that the 8458 phone is subscribed to BRYAN KOHBERGER at an address in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, and the account has been open since June 23, 2022. That's right before he left Pennsylvania for Washington. These records also included historical cell site location information, CSLI, for the 8458 phone. After receiving this information, I consulted with an FBI special agent, SA, that is certified as a member of the Cellular Analysis Survey Team, CAST. Members of CAST are certified with the FBI to provide expert testimony in the field of historical CSLI and are required to pass extensive training that includes both written and practical examinations prior to be certified with CAST, as well as the completion of yearly certification requirements. Additionally, the FBI CAST SA that I consulted with has over 15 years of federal law enforcement expertise, which includes 6 years with the FBI. From information provided by CAST, I was able to determine estimated locations for the 8458 phone from November 12, 2022 to November 13, 2022, the time period authorized by the court. On November 13, 2022, at approximately 2:42 a.m., the 8458 phone was utilizing cell resources that provide coverage to 1630 Northeast Valley Road, apartment G201, Pullman, Washington, hereafter the Kohberger residence. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the 8458 phone utilized cell resources that provide coverage southeast of the Kohberger residence, consistent with the 8458 phone leaving the Kohberger residence and traveling south through Pullman, Washington. This is consistent with the movement unit of the white Elantra. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the 8458 phone stops reporting to the network, which is consistent with either the phone being in an area without any cell coverage, the connection to the network is disabled, such as putting the phone in airplane mode, or that the phone is turned off. The 8458 phone does not report to the network again until approximately 4:48 a.m., at which time it utilized cellular resources that provide coverage to Idaho State Highway 95 south of Moscow, Idaho, near Blaine, Idaho, northeast of Genesee. Between 4:50 a.m. and 5:26 a.m., the phone utilizes cellular resources that are consistent with the 8458 phone traveling south on Idaho State 95 to Genesee, Idaho, then traveling west towards Uniontown, Idaho, and then north back to Pullman, Washington. At approximately 5:30 a.m., the 8458 phone is utilizing resources that provide coverage to Pullman, Washington, and consistent with the phone traveling back to the Kohberger residence. The 8458 phone's movements are consistent with the movements of the white Elantra that is observed traveling north on Stadium Drive at approximately 5:27 a.m. Based on a review of the 8458 phone's estimated locations and travel, the 8458 phone's travel is consistent with that of the white Elantra. Further review indicated that the 8458 phone utilized cell resources on November 13, 2022 that are consistent with the 8458 phone leaving the area of the Kohberger residence at approximately 9 a.m. and traveling to Moscow, Idaho. So at 9 a.m. he left home that Sunday and traveled back to Moscow. Wow. Specifically, the 8458 phone utilized the cell resources that would provide coverage to the King Road residence between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. So he went back to the scene of the crime just like we predicted. The 8458 phone next utilized cell resources that are consistent with the 8458 phone traveling back to the area of the Kohberger residence and arriving to the area at approximately 9:32 a.m. Wow. That Sunday morning before cops were even called, Bryan left his apartment, went to the King Road house, and went back home. He must have seen no cops or anything. He was right back there. Wow. Below is a depiction, not to scale, of the possible route taken based off of cellular locations. So we'll have a better map when we can see this actual rendition. But that's perhaps where he drove. Investigators found that the 8458 phone did connect to a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14th, 2022, but investigators do not believe the 8458 phone was in Moscow on that date. Oh, so that Monday when I thought he may have driven past the house, he may not have. That could have been a different car. The 8458 phone has not connected to any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date. So either he turned his phone off or he never came back to Moscow after Sunday, November 13th. Based on my training, experience, and the facts of the investigation thus far, I believe that Kohberger, the user of the 8458 phone, was likely the driver of the white Elantra that is observed departing Pullman, Washington, and that this vehicle is likely suspect vehicle 1. Additionally, the route of travel of the 8458 phone during the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, and the lack of the 8458 phone reporting to AT&T between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. is consistent with Kohberger attempting to conceal his location during the quadruple homicide that occurred at the King Road residence. On December 23rd, 2022, I was granted a search warrant for Kohberger's historical CSLI from June 23rd to current prospective location information and a PIN registered trap and trace on the 8458 phone to aid in efforts to determine if Kohberger stalked any of the victims in this case prior to the offense, conducted surveillance on the King Road residence, was in contact with any of the victim's associates before or after the alleged offense, any locations that may contain evidence of the murders that occurred on November 13th, 2022, the location of the white Elantra registered to Kohberger, as well as the location of Kohberger. Here we go. On Christmas Eve's Eve, on December 23rd, 2022, pursuant to that search warrant, I received historical records for the 8458 phone from AT&T from the time the account was opened in June 2022. After consulting consulting with CAST SA, I was able to determine estimated locations for the 8458 phone from June 2022 to present, the time period authorized by the court. The records for the 8458 phone show 8458 phone utilizing cellular resources that provide coverage to the area of 1122 King Road on at least 12 occasions prior to November 13th, 2022. All of these occasions, except for one, occurred in the late evening and early morning hours of their respective days. So he was stalking that house most likely late at night and early morning. One of these occasions, on August 21st, 2022, the 8458 phone utilized cell resources providing coverage to the King Road residents from approximately 10:34 p.m. to 11:35 p.m. At approximately 11:37 p.m., Kohberger was stopped by Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Duke, as mentioned above. The 8458 phone was utilizing cell resources consistent with the location of the traffic stop during this time, Farm Road and Pullman Highway. Further analysis of the cell data provided showed the 8458 phone utilized cell resources on November 13, 2022, consistent with the phone traveling from Pullman, Washington to Lewiston, Idaho, via U.S. Highway 195. At approximately 12:36 p.m., the 8458 phone utilized cell resources that would provide coverage to Kate's Cup of Joe coffee stand located at 810 Port Drive, Clarkston, Washington. Surveillance footage from the U.S. Chef's store located at 820 Port Drive, Clarkston, Washington, and adjacent to Kate's Cup of Joe showed a white Elantra consistent with suspect vehicle 1 drive past Kate's Cup of Joe at a time consistent with cellular data from the 8458 phone. At approximately 12:46 p.m., the 8458 phone then utilized cell data in the area of the Albertsons grocery store at 400 Bridge Street in Clarkston, Washington. Surveillance footage obtained from the Albertsons showed Kohberger exit the white Elantra consistent with suspect vehicle 1 at approximately 12:49 p.m. Interior surveillance cameras showed Kohberger walk through the store, purchase unknown items at the checkout, and leave at approximately 1:04 p.m. Kohberger's possible path of travel is depicted below, not to scale. So again, that was November 13th. So he needed coffee or something from Albertsons. Additional analysis of records for the 8458 phone indicated that between approximately 5:32 p.m. and 5:36 p.m., the 8458 phone utilized cell resources that provide coverage to Johnson, Idaho, then stops reporting to the network from approximately 5:36 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That is consistent with the 8458 phone being in the area that the 8458 phone traveled in the hours immediately following the suspected time the homicides occurred. On December 27, 2022, Pennsylvania agents recovered the trash from the Kohberger family residence located in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. That evidence was sent to the Idaho State Lab for testing. On December 28, 2022, the Idaho State Lab reported that a DNA profile obtained from the trash and the DNA profile obtained from the sheath identified a male as not being excluded as the biological father of suspect profile. At least 99.9998% of the male population would be expected to be excluded from the possibility of being the suspect's biological father. Based on the information above, I am requesting an arrest warrant to be issued for BRYAN C. Kohberger, date of birth November 21st, 1994, for burglary at the 1122 King Street in Moscow, Idaho, and all 4 counts of murder in the first degree for the murders of Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. I declare under penalty of perjury pursuant to the law of the state of Idaho that the foregoing is true and correct. So let's hope that's enough. Great job to the cops. They've got DNA from the sheath, not the knife, apparently. They've got, most importantly, an eyewitness in Dylan, which I think is very important, which no wonder she is being hidden and protected. And they've got all of his movements and his stalking actions. This still doesn't tell us whether he knew any of the victims, but time will tell. We'll learn more. Thanks for watching and listening.